It came out in 2008, right?
Yeah.
Which means the first time I saw it was when I was 14, which
Right.
means that it's a film I loved as a teenager. And yet, it's still a fantastic movie. Like, there are lots of films I loved as a teenager and loved as a kid that have turned out to be...
A bit trash.
yeah, kind of. I mean, not to say that liking things as a teenager is a mark of how good something
I have a whole genre in my collection at home, which is films that I bought before I had taste.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't have that written on the shelf,
Yeah,
but,
but we know which ones they are, right?
I've got like a couple of hundred films of mainly rubbish science fiction, stuff like all the Blade sequels. And it's all stuff that I bought when I was like, I don't know, 14, 15.
Also, all the films that you watch when you're getting into cinema.
Yes, indeed. But what my point is that like those films, like all the the Tarantino movies, they've got their own little section.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of trash in there, which I liked when I was a teenager, which I don't like now. But I remember seeing this when I don't know.
And is a yardstick against which I measure a lot of other films.
Yes.
Even though it's so unique in what it is and what it does and what it plays with.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still rate a lot of films against it. It's still one of my absolute favourite movies.
I don't know, because it's super simple as a film. And we were talking about how Martin McDonagh is a playwright by heart.
You're saying plays are simpler?
Well, in the sense that it's got a handful of characters.
Okay,
you can all play it out in an hour and a half. It's not some sprawling epic, which you...
No. And it kind of fits that Aristotelian thing of it's all in one place and happens within a very set amount of time.
Yes.
In which case, you're right. It doesn't sprawl.
No. It's like, this is the story. It's about good and evil, and death and purgatory. Mm-hmm. And these are our characters. Yeah. And nothing is wasted. It's such a good written. Yeah. It's so well put together, the script, because nothing is wasted. Well, like just to take an example of like how well it's put together.
Yeah.
Right, they're doing a homage to Nicholas Roeg's Don't Look Now. So they have the kid, which is played by the dwharf.
Yeah.
I can't remember the actor's name.
The actor's name, I wrote it down actually, Jordan Prentice.
Okay, so Jordan Prentice plays the midget in this film. Mm-hmm. And he is a character in the homage to Nicholas Roeg's Don't Look Now. He's dressed up as a schoolboy, okay? Mm-hmm. So all that set up at the beginning with the midget, at the time it seems like, oh, this is comedy setup. Right?
And also is a person of short stature that's kind of a central part of the story, is a very McDonagh thing. Like if you look at Four Billboards,
right? Yeah,
is a similar dynamic, not in the same character setup at all, but it's a McDonagh trope. It's so tightly wound up in the storytelling.
Yeah. Because the whole point is that Ralph Fiennes is a man of his word, and he makes a point about that. Mm-hmm. And he also says when he's picking the bullets out from Yuri that he says he knows he shouldn't, but I will take the dum-dums, which are the reason why he can't recognise the fact that he's killed a midget and not a little boy. Mm-hmm. And he says that if he had killed a little boy, he'd shoot himself on the fucking spot. You've got to stick to your principles. And that's such an intense, creepy, interesting bit of storytelling that you like set up of a midget and it plays into that. Yeah. Like, how cool is that?
It's like, amazing. I think I had exactly the same. Is that thing where Harry is chasing Ray slowly. Harry is walking down Ray at this point through that sort of Bosch dream scene that they're filming. Yeah. And I was having exactly the same thought, which is, fuck, he's a good writer.
Yeah.
And how every single thing is set up from the very beginning. The script is so tight. The entire film is so tight. There's not an Amberley, you could probably cut that scene about it.
It's super tight, cut down to the bone. Which is great, because it means that you actually leave it wanting more instead of just falling asleep in the cinema. Yeah. Which you should never.
I think you've actually made many more notes than me. I just write down lines that I like mostly.
Do you want to talk
what
about
have you got on a starter one?
The dog.
I do want to talk about the dog, even though the dog turns up kind of halfway through, doesn't it?
No, it's pretty early on.
It's early on.
It's definitely, you could call it in the first act that the dog turns up and just stares at Ray with that pitying, awfully sad look on the dog's face.
Yeah, so it's when... What is Jordan Prentice's character's name?
Jimmy,
yes. So he's waving at Jimmy from across the square and Jimmy's taking no notice, because he's on ketamine. And, quote, wasn't waving at anyone except possibly a horse.
Yeah. That's such a funny line.
Everything's a funny line.
Well, I couldn't write
Every line is a...
You know?
I definitely could not.
Yeah, I was on a lot of ketamine
A lot of horse tranquilizer.
A lot of horse tranquilizer. So I wasn't saying hi to anybody apart from maybe a horse. Like, who the fuck can come up with that line? That's so good.
Martin, you're a genius. So he's sitting there and it's obviously absolutely freezing. It's one of those clear, cold December days, kind of like we've had today.
You can tell that all the crew are like wrapped up in like a billion layers.
Everyone's
and Colin Farrell's just like shivering in this like shirt and jacket.
Yeah. He's wearing a coat, but it's a very thin one. There's this quite dapper middle-aged gentleman sitting next to him, and this dog just turns to look at him, but as someone who has owned dogs and likes dogs, I could not tell you what sort of dog that dog is. It has no fur on its face. It looks like soft toys as a kid.
Yeah.
And then
I understand.
What childhood did you have? Anyways, and at some point they get so old and you've sort of chewed on bits of them so much that some of the fur wears off and they look a bit pre-loved. And that's what this dog looks like. This dog looks like an old teddy bear.
I thought it looked a bit like a poodle, but with fur shaved off its face.
Do you think that was deliberate? These little bald patches?
Yeah, I think they just wanted a really sad dog just to look at Ray, and then Ray looks at the dog as if to say, like, yeah, you and me, buddy, and the dog just looks at him and
do you think it's in the script, like a dog looks at Ray, or do you think they saw the dog when they were filming and went, we have to use that dog in a movie?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like, because how can you not use that dog in a movie?
How can you not use that dog?
But yeah, the dog looks at him, and the dog looks away, and Ray's like, oh, I'm being rejected by the saddest creature around me. The sad thing pities Ray, and it just, I think it's just a reminder for him of like how low he is in the world. It's like, and there are other moments like that with like Ray's rubbing his mouth thing that he does.
Yeah, and as we mentioned it when we were watching it, when he's getting ready for the date with Chloe, and he's playing with the. Clemens Posey. I love Florence Brady. I hate that that's the first thing we've said about her because she gives such a brilliant performance in this. But yes, oh my god, we were all in love with her in this movie. But he does that thing and sort of moves his 3 fingers around his mouth, and I've got no sense of doing that. But it adds very much to the sense that in many ways Ray is an absolute child. He sort of has his hands in his mouth and by his mouth all the time, and it's that kind of really like toddler-like oral fixation.
Yes. I thought it was a sign of insecurity when I see people do stuff like that.
Yeah. It's not like he's cleaning something out of his teeth or brushing something out of his face. It's a real... You
know how you see some cartoons, like The Simpsons, and you have Homer go like, oh no, what have I done? And he just does this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like a...
He's sort of just pushing his mouth.
I feel embarrassed because I've fucked up in life type thing.
Yeah.
You can just look at him and tell him that he's like intensely sad about something.
Mm-hmm.
And that bit where he like wakes up in the morning and it's cold and washed out and... Well, it's not even blue, it's just...
Very cold.
White.
Yeah.
Very cold and desaturated.
This is after 2 manky hookers and a racist dwarf.
Yes.
This is the morning after that.
Yeah, it's the morning after that and Ray wakes up in the morning. Even though it's like a tiny little couple of shots of him just being in bed in the morning.
It's him waking up and deciding to die, isn't it?
Yeah, and it really hit home for me because it's like sometimes you're so down, you wake up and you don't want to get out of bed. And it's like, he's like, what's the point of getting out of bed?
What's the point of any of it?
That's intense.
Colin Farrell does really extraordinary work in this film.
Yes.
Like swinging wildly between being this fast-talking child and this recklessly aggressive, insecure.
Yeah.
Almost like that parody of the reckless, insecure man being very, very, very broken by something he's done.
Yeah. Because he's a manic depressive.
You can diagnose it as a character tendency, or as something that it would have been an innate part of him before he killed the child and had something.
Like you could say that he had a predisposition to being manic. There are moments when he, is saying things like Bruges is a shithole and what the fuck is a lollipop man knowing fucking karate? And there are moments like that, and he laughs, and then he's like, I'm trying to talk about why I killed a kid, Ken, like, can you fucking talk to me, please? And there are loads of moments like that where he's like, he goes from like laughing to crying, and it's like, he just like can't get a handle on what his head's doing.
Yeah.
And it's played so well. Like it's not like you're watching an actor playing depressed and like, oh, woe is me. It's like,
no, it's lovely. It's that moment when he's on the date with Chloe and he goes, do I look like I shoot people? And she goes, no. Well, apart from maybe children, you don't look like you shoot priests, but you do look like you shoot kids. And that just like flashbulb moment of
because it's really subtle. It's not like
magical.
You just play it in like this tiny little close up of him just moving his face in a very, very small amount. Mm-hmm. It's great. I really love the fact that they go on a first date and they are completely honest with each other. You see them in the restaurant.
Yeah.
They're asking what each other's do.
And she says, I sell cocaine and heroin to movie sets.
To Bill from Phil Cruise, and he murders priests and children for money.
Yeah. Which
is exactly what both of them do.
Yeah.
And it's played like a gag, but they come out with being completely honest with each other immediately.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, because for some reason I always thought that she didn't believe him when he said it. Obviously, because she continues to make a joke about it.
Yeah.
But they definitely are upfront with each other, which is great.
It's good.
And makes it an interesting first date in a movie, right?
Yes, as movie first dates go.
It's pretty good.
Yes. I love the way he talks in the third person about himself. He pauses. As if he should hit the cunt.
Yes.
And repeats.
That
what's
under the
fucking
breath,
unbelievable.
Reading the stage.
It's
stage commands.
It's really theatre-y. It's very similar to the way that in Fight Club they they have that whole thing about I'm Jax.
I don't know, I've never seen Fight Club.
Oh, no.
I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Kill it, spoil it.
It's been out for a while.
It's been out for a while, exactly.
Okay, so in Fight Club,
spoilers for Fight Club.
There's the narrator, whose character is called the narrator.
Mm-hmm.
He finds a bunch of books in the house that they're squatting in, and they're medical journals in the third person.
Right.
So he shows he is really great. So he's saying like, I am Jack's broken spleen. I am Maurice's cancer in his lung, or whatever it is. And it's just like a child's sort of.
I was going to say, it sounds like a Ladybird book of
medical maladies. And it's really cool. And later on in the film, after that scene happens in Fight Club, he plays with that with other characters. So he'll say like, I am Jack's complete lack of surprise when his boss confronts him about why he's been late and all that sort of stuff. And his boss is like, the fuck are you saying? Like, why did you say that?
Yeah.
But we get it as the audience. And it's so good. It's like, and I used
to... It's like to camera, not to camera. And
I used to say stuff like that all the time, where I was like saying...
I think it's a thing that we've all done. I certainly have moments, especially when my brain sort of malfunctions and I end up dropping a whole plate of food into the sink or something. You know, just when I'm being a prat. And it is just like that sort of imagining that someone else is seeing it. And it's such a small moment and it doesn't reappear again. Like, it's not something that Ray does in this film.
Yeah.
But it is great. It's very threatening as well.
What is very threatening?
He pauses, takes a sheep, hit the cunt. That's like to do that in front of a person.
Yeah, because you're
who you have decided to really go in for there. Yeah. He decides to come for a fight. We both had a very moment to watching Ray making that decision to lean back in and go, what's fucking unbelievable.
Yeah, and he speaks in third person. Because you're sort of telling the other guy that you're a little bit unhinged.
Yeah.
And I used to do it as a joke with random things like before the event happens. So at work or wherever, I remember saying a bunch of times throughout, I don't know, the last few years. This is back in the day. I used to say things like, this will happen in this hour, or then we'll go over here and do that scene, or yada, yada, yada. He says with confidence before the event actually happens.
Yeah.
As if to say, like, I don't know, it might happen. It might all turn to shit. Mm-hmm. It hasn't happened yet. You don't know. And that was just one example of like...
That's friendly and that's quirky and that's leaning in and that's inviting everyone else into that, like... Woohoo.
He says before the event happens.
Yeah.
And I think I must have said that a whole bunch of times throughout the recent history.
Because of this movie.
Yeah, because it's such an intense moment and you really like...
it's terrifying though. And it's really, really being stupid as well.
Mm.
It's like really, really poor decision making on his part. He has that incredibly poor impulse control.
Yes.
Does all right.
And you know
what anyone's going to do next to you.
Has poor impulse control. The fact that he hits the guy in the restaurant
is
the reason why Ken's plan doesn't work, because that's the reason why he gets pulled back off the train.
Yeah.
He goes back to Bruges, and that's the reason that Ken is killed.
Mm-hmm.
Even though Ken knew he was going to die,
Yeah, and is one of those things that is a neat bit of storytelling, but massively feeds back into this Bruges purgatory, Bruges hell thing. Yeah. You can't leave.
Yeah. Bruges is definitely purgatory, though, I think.
Yeah.
In the sense that Martin McDonagh, you're saying how the way the script came about is he had a trip to Bruges, and he felt that there was two sides of him. One side was the fact that he didn't like the place, and one side was the fact that he did like the place. Mm-hmm. You turn those two sides into two characters, Ray and Ken.
Ken, I always forget. I'm always like Ray and Brendan Gleeson.
Brendan Gleeson, yeah. Yeah, Ray and Ken. And then he added in the stuff with the hitmen.
And then he let them loose.
Yeah.
My God. No, it is more clearly a purgatory place. It's just in that sort of closing voiceover. That's what Ray gets, isn't it? Maybe hell is an eternity spent in fucking Bruges. But it's definitely purgatory in terms of it's like the place where they're all trying to work out and work off their sins.
And it's the place where he will be judged.
Yeah.
In the tradition of the how do you say his name?
Hieronymus Bosch.
You said it quite quickly.
Hieronymus Bosch.
Hieronymus Bosch.
Yeah. Have you seen those paintings?
Yeah, they're fucking intense.
They're incredible.
Yeah.
Just the imagination to birth those paintings. You do look at them and just go like...
Looking at those paintings is like watching Amour. Okay, so Amour, do you know Amour? Do you know Funny Games?
Yes.
That horribly tense film about a home invasion.
Yeah.
With two
I don't know. Thing is, I know of Funny Games. I know of the folklore of
these two random dudes who won't leave your house, and it's terrifying.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing bit of filmmaking, but you don't want to see that again.
No.
You watch it once. You watch Amour.
It's like, cool, I've seen that movie.
Oh, Michael Haneke.
That's Michael Haneke.
Haneke, yeah.
No, I don't.
So that dude, yeah, he did the original Funny Games, and then there's a remake of Funny Games, which is horrible. Yeah. And then he made Amour.
So fairly recently, he regularly gets critical walkouts. Am I just libeling someone?
Maybe. Yeah. Talking out of your ass.
Talking out of my
ass. It's very good, Amour, but it's just basically about a couple, and the wife has a stroke, and it's just about... Because Amour is love, and it's just about this love between these two couples, and the guy who just looks after her until she just basically just falls apart. So it's like that thing about the couple talking to each other, and one of them asking, "Would you love me if I had no legs? Would you love me if I had no arms? Would you love me if you?" And you just go along, and in Wayne's World they made fun of that, where he says, "Would you love me if I was the spasticated retard? You had to push me around in a wheelchair," and he's like, "But that's actually seen in Wayne's World," and I don't know which one came first, but it just shows
one of them is a pastiche of the other.
Yeah, exactly. It just shows how amazing Wayne's World is.
Yeah, absolutely.
But anyway, we're going
cultural icon. But
yes,
we got there because Bosch, didn't we?
Yeah. So Hieronymus Bosch is all about judgment, isn't it?
There's a sort of more paradisal imagery, and one that is frog people marching out of the ear of a mouse. And,
your horrible nightmare.
Yeah,
stuff.
And lots of people being impaled. And
yes.
It's sort of darkly sexual and brutal and horrible, and lots of weird creatures. And, yeah.
It's just unsettling. It's like you don't want to look at it. That's kind of the nature of judgment, is that it's like you don't really want to do it, but you know that it's coming at the end. It's played out literally in Bruges. Mm-hmm. When he wanders into his own Hieronymus Bosch painting.
Yeah.
Which is so amazing. That's such a cool thing to have a chase scene between two hitmen.
Club remix of the score.
Yes.
That happens during that chase is
and then
really good.
And then he just starts wandering into this snowy environment full of people with mouse heads. And I think like Judgment, you want to get it over and done with. It's like but you can't. It's like you're stuck there for a bit, like Purgatory. It's just after Ken has stopped Ray from killing himself in the park, as obviously Ken was about to kill him, and he's like, "What are you doing, Nothing? I wasn't killing you." He's like, "You had a gun."
Yeah.
You were bloody gonna kill me. Anyway, so they have that whole scene, and he says "My day couldn't have gotten worse. I couldn't go through with killing myself. I've got my gun nicked off me, and I'm still in fucking Bruges." Exactly. It's like he's still in. It's just the frustration of not being able to get out of your judgment. It's really intense.
Until you work off or someone lets you out. I also think it's interesting. There's that scene in the church or the Basilica of the Sacred Blood. We never We should have looked up what that place is called. But the place with the dried blood of Jesus Christ. Of course, you don't fucking have to.
Yeah.
And then you go to the art gallery. Right. And it's a lot of the same art on show. I don't mean exactly, but that church is full of Renaissance paintings and scenes of the life of Christ and everything else that a church has in it. And then those sorts of scenes, albeit the ones that are about torture and the body under stress and that image of the flayed man and stuff, they're all sort of itemised on the white wall of the gallery. And I wonder, it's reading too much into it, but it strikes me somewhat that the reason why we have galleries and why we curate things is so we can see things bit by bit by bit and can see them more clearly.
Yes.
And can draw more meaning from them. Because it's in the art gallery that they have the conversation about purgatory, or they begin to have the conversation about purgatory and whether you believe in going to hell when you die. Not in the church.
Yes, that's true. That's an interesting point.
It just struck me as...
Yeah. You want to talk about how good of an actor Brendan Gleeson is?
Yes, I do want to talk about how good an actor Brendan Gleeson is.
He's very good.
He's very good. Done. Yeah. Topic finished. But like the strength of this movie and like the strength of a lot of films that I really like is you can single out all the actors for phenomenal performances, but they are also completely matching strength with each other.
Do you talk about the phone call he has with Ray?
I do.
With
Harry. And that phone call they have is stunning. I mean, we've been set up to expect Harry before by way of a telegram. And I think this is such an incredible way to introduce a character over a long period of time.
Yeah.
You get the transcription of the phone call and the incredibly faithful down to every last fucking...
Yeah. Marie had to write
Marie had to write every single... And she did so so faithfully. And then you get this phone call, which is such a perfect character introduction. And then you meet the fella. Also kind of on the phone. But Brendan Gleeson's work in it, from the whole farce of having to act out Ray leaving the room. He's in the bathroom. Is he having a wee or a poo? Opening the door, telling him to go bowling or something, closing the door. Then Harry asking him to check again outside just in case he's lingering and having to go through the whole thing. And absolutely plays the comedy of it. And absolutely plays... And the sort of the journey he goes on by sort of like listening to Harry ranting in that slightly eye-rolly, God, what's he like way, to really trying to pacify him like a child when he realises he's upset him, and that Bruges really does feature quite strongly in his personal mythology, and then to realising what Harry's asking him to do when sort of you can kind of see like the bolts on the door slide across.
It's so sad when you see his face. I'd be nice to fucking kill this dude.
Yeah.
Sorry.
He feels really sorry for... And we can also presume, right, that Ken and Ray... This is so hard. Why are their names so hard? But we can presume that Ken and Ray haven't known each other for a particularly long time.
No, because you know Ray's first job.
It's Ray's first job. They arrive in Bruges immediately, right? They flee whatever church they're in London, and they flee to Bruges to share a room, although that's very much a sort of like... Oh, we're two grown-up men. We can't share a room as much as it's anything else. He's really grown protective of him incredibly quickly.
But I think that's just because of Ken's character. He's just like this dude who is like a protector and just look after stuff.
Yeah, and because you find out, don't you, that the reason he became a hitman in the first place is that Harry...
Because he's indebted to Harry.
He's indebted to Harry for... is it carrying out retribution over the murder of his wife?
Yes.
That's the situation.
Well, he found the guys who did it. His wife was murdered, and Harry either found them,
Harry got the guys,
killed them, and in return he now works for Harry.
Yeah, those sides of his character are very, very tightly wound up.
It's interesting that even though the film is about hitmen, and you have Colin Farrell's character Ray, you have his character admitting that he did it for money, even though all of the other characters, they don't do these things for money. They do these things like codes of honour and principles.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you're right. Money comes up.
Not a lot.
Not a lot.
Yeah, it's not really the point. The point is their moral decision making and their like righteous.
Yeah.
What they think is righteous retribution.
And it's a hitman film and it's a gangster film, but there are no of those sort of like the shots and the bits of storytelling that I associate with gangster movies, the most famous ones, is that you have those scenes of the overwhelming luxury in a weird way justifies this life. Those sort of opulent slow motion scenes of the money going down on the table and the things happening.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The things happening being incredibly vague, but...
No, but
there's a level of glamour to it.
Yes. In every film about like in every single bloody film about gangsters, it's always movie, like, right? Look how amazing I'm doing. It's like rap music videos. It's like, look at my boats and hoes.
Even like I don't know why I'm saying even like Civil Surprise, but thinking of like Lock, Stock and the Snatch and the Guy Ritchie movies. Layer Cake, yeah. So the London ones, which bear sort of closer resemblance to this in terms of they're not trying to do the Hollywood glamour thing. Even then, there's a strain, or at least a scene of something being worth it.
Yes.
Of this life of making all these poor moral choices, if we can call it stuff, pays off in a very financial.
Like even Layer Cake, which is one of my favourite films. Even the ending of that is glamorising the fact that the main character, the guy who doesn't tell you his name, ends up in the country club that his boss once had.
Yeah.
And you've got that music playing, and you're like, yeah, he's made it. He's a bigwig now, and he's got a fancy suit and he's got cigars and stuff. Even though that film was all about him getting out, he's like, he can't get out. Oh, that's an interesting comparison to In Bruges.
Yeah.
People die at the end of the films because of a snitch.
Yeah.
And in Layer Cake, it's the dude's like annoying little brother.
Yeah, I haven't seen the film as such.
He's a great actor, the guy who played him in the end of In Bruges. It's like at the end of Layer Cake. But you know how he says, I'm sorry, and he just runs up with a pistol and shoots him at the steps. And it's just after he turns around and looks at the camera and goes like, I'm doing really well. I've got my girlfriend, I'm going to fly away, everything's... And he just gets shot. Because like, you can't crawl out of that world.
Yeah.
And in Bruges, it's the snitch. It's the...
Eric.
The big gay baby.
The big gay baby.
As he was referred to
by Ray.
By both characters.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about your point, which I completely missed?
I do want to talk about my point. Just beautifully at a level of the script and the dialogue, the ways in which Martin McDonagh draws the parallel between Ray and between Harry. You've got Ray makes that quip of, I'm having a gay beer for my gay friend and a normal beer for me because I am normal.
That's such a good line.
Attempting as well not to try and do it in the accent, because it gets the cadence right, but then there's like a mad parody and I don't do that. But then when Harry goes to see Yuri, he asked for a normal gun for a normal person. And I was just like, oh, cool. They have the same kind of speech patterns and the same worldview. And then that is brought out even more in the way that Harry responds to Eric.
And Eric's...
But basically calling
story.
him, and I quote, a little buff.
Yes. And a big gay baby.
And a big gay baby, yeah. And
He's
if
like,
you're...
Well, if you allow your gun to be taken off you...
Yeah.
And you're carrying blanks...
Then you're allowing yourself to be shot in the face.
Which I imagine you have to get quite close to.
Yeah.
It looks like it's all your fault, isn't it, you big puff?
Big puff, yeah.
And that's...
That's it. That's exactly Ray's worldview as well.
Yeah. Down to the fucking dialogue. It's like exactly the same. I want a normal beer for me because I'm normal. It's like I want a normal gun for a normal person.
Yeah.
And when he says normal person, it's like, oh yeah, because Ray is a normal person.
Yeah.
Because he called himself a normal person. And I'm like, holy shit, it's very well written.
I just like how that happened. And again, like you were saying at the very top of this, you watch this film again and again and again and again and again, and then suddenly a little thing pops up. I didn't notice that until this time.
I think you can only really pay attention to that after you've seen the film lots of times.
Yeah. It's like when that point when you're watching movies and you can pay attention to what's happening in the background.
There was a film, and I've forgotten the name of the film. It's been a few times I've seen it. The first time I saw it, I thought it was a really beautiful looking film back in 2001 or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I watched it a few times. I watched it recently for the first time in about 5 or 6 years. And I looked at it and I was like, this whole film, like you can tell there are these just giant silks just bouncing like all over the place. And it's so well overly lit. Oh yeah, okay. So it was
come around to it.
Might not be 2001. It was called Sahara.
Right.
It was a film with Matthew McConaughey in it and Penelope Cruz, and it's a classic romp.
Right.
And it's based on a Clive Cussler Dirk Pitt novel. It's like men's airport trash books, which I fucking loved when I was a kid. And
airport trash books.
Yeah.
What a genre.
Yeah, it's airport
what
trash.
A genre.
You know, it's like it's dumb romance for women, end of the world James Bond lookalike type stuff for men. Anyway, so but the Clive Cussler books are very good. They are like pretty solid novels.
I can picture the font that his name is written in on the front of
it. Yeah. So Sahara is shot by Seamus McGarvey. Mm-hmm. I used to love that film and thought it looked really cool and like dynamic and interesting. And I'm looking at it now, I'm like, there's like a massive light like 2 feet away from this guy's face, just off the frame. It's like you can tell it's like everything's so overly lit, and like even where they have areas of darkness when they're on like a river in Nigeria, not Nigeria, in Congo. It was somewhere in Africa.
Yeah.
And then a speedboat going up a river.
Yeah.
But it's at night time. It's all quiet and dark and spooky.
Yeah.
And this dark, spooky nighttime boat scene, that's right, is lit so like brightly. It's like you can see for miles down the river. It's like I don't know where I'm going at this point actually.
No, where did we start on this? I know. I was wondering though, like for noticing that it's being lit brightly. No, we were talking about the things. Okay, following this back, we were talking about the things you notice on like the 10th time seeing something, which is where we got to from a normal gun for a normal person, and something that only noticed today. But I wonder if you noticing it and you noticing those sorts of things, having just watched the film for the first time in 5-6 years, if you're noticing that is because you have so much more set experience.
Maybe. Yeah, I feel like we should talk about Ken more.
We need to talk about Ken a lot more.
Not just his...
No, we spoke about Brendan Gleeson. We spoke very quickly onto Ray Fiennes.
So we spoke about how good an actor he is.
Yeah.
Like the phone conversation, where he goes from like, I'm placating a child to, I know either that I have to kill my friend or I'll have to like let him go loose and I'll have to die in his place.
Yeah. He's very empathetic, isn't he?
Yes.
Which is not the quality you expect in it,
I really like Ken. You know what Ken is? He's the only... Actually, that's not true because Ray Fiennes is the villain. Okay. So what I mean by that is that Ken is like the only character who accepts his judgment.
What is his judgment?
Either has to murder his friend,
right? Yes,
or get murdered in his place. Because Ken is aware of Ralph Fiennes, Ray Fiennes. Harry. Ken is aware of Harry's character.
Yeah.
And he understands when he's on that phone with him that when Harry says, if the buck don't stop with me,
where's it stop? Right, I see. So you can see him knowingly making that contract, right? It's I kill Ray or Harry kills me. Yeah. Whereas when Harry goes, if I killed a kid, I wouldn't think twice. I'd shoot myself in the fucking head on the spot. He doesn't know he's making a contract with his future there.
Exactly. Oh, that's such a good point to make.
And he says it out loud, right?
Yeah, he says it out loud. So Harry does not understand that, as you very well put, he's making a contract with his future self, whereas Ken is. Yeah. And Ken's aware of that, and he accepts it. Because he writes his last will and testament, he gets dressed up in his suit, mentally prepares himself for death. Which is probably why him and Harry have been, successfully working together for presumably a while, because Harry doesn't flinch from the irony of the situation, or for him, not the irony of the situation, for him realising what that is. Yeah. And you wonder if he hadn't said it out loud, whether or not that would be it, but there's something about that I said it in front of Ken. Yeah. And he's such a great character in the sense that he's... Harry or Ken? Well, both are, but Harry in the sense that his wife says, is it going to be dangerous? Tell me you're taking the fellas with you. Tell me you're taking the fellas with you. And he goes I'm not taking the fellas with it, and of course it's going to be dangerous if it's a matter of honour. But ironically, he doesn't know that he's actually going to kill himself. No, but I wonder if it's a matter of honour. He's aware of the danger of it. He's knowingly walking into a shootout, right? That's that it's a matter of honour, right? He accepts the possibility that he's going to die. Yeah. Can accept the certainty that he's going to die. Yes. We were talking about the contracts that
Ken and Harry make with themselves.
Yes.
And the reason why Ken and Harry's are different is that Ken knows exactly the deal he's making when he puts Ray on the train.
Yeah.
In terms of, he knows that he's signing himself up.
I know, and it's so
to
sad.
the end, and it's so sad. But it's so freaking noble.
It is noble, and it's admirable. It's like everyone should be like Ken. I
think Harry does have a share in that nobility when he sets up these moral points for himself, sets up the situation.
Yeah.
Does what he thinks is killing a kid.
Yeah.
And there he goes.
Gotta stick to your principles.
Okay,
so when Ken is at the station with Ray, and he puts round a train, Ray says, "Can I have a gun back?" He goes, "No." And Ray says to Ken, like, "Oh, when do you think you're going to go back to England?" He says, "Oh, in a couple of hours or so." And it's played off like so straight. You're like, "Oh, okay, so he's going to go back to England."
He generally thinks he's never going to see.
But at that moment, he's like, "No, I'm going to write my last will and testament. I'm going to call Harry up on the phone and antagonise him to come to Bruges."
Yeah.
Knowing that Harry's going to come to Bruges to kill him. Which
also, like we're talking about, the entire plot weirdly rests on people being incredibly honest with each other. There is no sense, maybe because of his debt.
That's a great point.
Because of his debt to Harry or something. There are many ways that this storyline goes where he puts Ray on a train. He believes that either Ray is going to kill himself, which he hope he doesn't, but it could happen, or he does end up in one of the million towns in mainland Europe.
Yes.
And then he calls Ray and says it's done. Calls Harry and says it's done. End.
Yeah.
Harry's not going to fucking know where Ray is. I mean, obviously there's a chance it could get back to him, but for whatever reason, Ken decides to call Harry up and tell him in no uncertain terms that he's directly defied his wishes.
Yeah.
And you're right, he's like very antagonistic. He doesn't try to reason with him on the phone.
Doesn't try to
explain
placate
the situation
him,
or placate
like he did earlier in the film.
Yeah.
He's like, it's a fucking fairy tale, and he knows. He's like, oh, he's fucking pissed now.
Yeah.
You know.
And so he deliberately pisses him off, and I wonder why.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of understand that in the sense that sometimes you just want to get something over and done with. You don't want to wait around. You want to like nip things in the bud. And rip off band-aids quickly.
Yeah,
and I think that's part of Ken's.
I also wonder if, because the film hinges around revenge and redemption and purgatory, I wonder for Ken if there's this idea that quote unquote saving Ray will do more for his soul and salvation than killing any more people for Harry will.
Yes, because Ken says earlier in the film, it's like, and yes, I have to come to terms with the fact that I have killed a few people.
Not many people and not particularly nice people.
But you've done
Apart from the Lollipop Man.
Apart from the Chinese 50-year-old Lollipop Man who knew
not
karate.
Chinese.
Oh yeah, he says only Chinese Lollipop Men would know karate.
Yeah, it's like, what's the 50-year-old Lollipop Man doing knowing karate? What was he, a fucking Chinese Lollipop Man? Well, the only motivation we're given is the debt that he owes Harry, right? And that's a debt that lasts a lifetime and is very linked up with the relationship he had with his wife. So I wonder if he sees his redemption in saving Ray.
Yeah.
And therefore it's all gravy after that.
And he doesn't tell Ray that he's gonna call the guy who's gonna kill him to him. He doesn't tell him that he's gonna die. He tells him, "Oh, I'm gonna go back to England in a couple of hours."
Because you don't tell that to a man as fragile as Ray. You don't tell a man who's very much just tried to top himself that what's actually going to happen is I'm going to kill myself for you.
I know, it's so sad. And do you know when he gets on the train and he says like,
I'll probably kill myself in 2 weeks anyway.
I'll probably tell him that I'll probably kill myself in 2 weeks anyway. And
you're not gonna, are you?
And he said, "But you're not going to," because then Ken's like, "No, don't do that, because I'm trying to make my soul better.
Exactly.
I'm trying to improve my character as you should." And he's like, "But no, that's it's linked to me, you idiot." And he just shrugs his shoulders, and the train fucking leaves. It's like,
and the whole cycle, I think, around purgatory and redemption, but also suicide and death and salvation. There's that very Irishness undertone to it. It's an Irish writer with Irish characters, but apart from a quip about Dublin,
I grew up in Dublin. If I grew up on a farm and was retarded, Bruges might impress me. Do you want to mention, talk about how tight the script is? Everything that's set up in the beginning is used at the end.
Yeah.
Where it goes, the tower is closed tonight, Englishman.
Whilst tapping him on the forehead.
Tapping an insane psychopath on the forehead, which is, God.
I love how Brendan Gleeson, Ken, just turns away and leaves it. He's just like, mate. Also, you put me through that whole thing of counting out my change and not giving me that ticket for £4.90. I know. I am not looking up to you.
Yeah, it's so awful. And like the bit where he goes like, oh, why is the tower closed? And he comes up with a great line. It's like, yesterday an American had a heart attack up the tower. Today the tower's closed. And you're like, oh, well, yeah, of course, that's the American. That's the guy.
That's the American.
I loved it when Ken walks up to the American just after Ray has the altercation with him. He's
literally giving him the runaround.
And
Ken,
with
such
sincerity, he's like, they're not going to know there, are they? Guys, don't do it.
Really narrow. Oh, it seems like it is one of those moments of this film where I do flinch. In terms of McDonagh does not very explicitly makes fat jokes and uses a lot of inflammatory language, which is perfectly natural in the mouths of his characters, but it's difficult for sensitive ears to hear, and also plays into a much wider conversation. But also it's that thing we just go, oh man, like there was a casting breakdown for that.
Yep. We need 3 huge Americans.
We need 3. Yeah, we need 3 fat actors, and we will mercilessly rip the shit out of them as well.
The fat dude chase a skinny Irishman around about a bench.
Yeah.
Until he gets out of breath. Mm-hmm. And that's the scene.
And then we kill the character.
Then we give him a heart attack off screen.
Yeah.
I wish I'd seen Bruges before I die.
Yeah, and the fact that Harry had been to Bruges when he was 7.
Yeah.
And has this fairy tale fixation with the place.
Weirdly.
Which means he doesn't like the fucking swans. It's a fucking fairy tale town. How can he not?
How do you not like the swan?
Yeah, and it's like...
And he's so autistic about it.
Ken/Ray is taking an absolute hammer to his entire childhood.
Yeah.
When he says he doesn't like it. It's a really, really bizarre thing for a person to do. And again, says so much about Harry's psychology.
Yeah.
That comes to him as the plan.
Yeah.
To
take him to Bruges.
Gonna take him to Bruges, let him have a nice time in this magical town.
Yeah, exactly. Because it wasn't like Harry was like Ray did a bad thing in life and he needs to sit in the purgatory of Bruges.
No.
Sorry. He needs to sit in the purgatory of Bruges before I come and murder him. It's like, it's not like that. It's just the fact that he just likes the town and thinks it'd be a nice thing to do.
And also, does he do this to all his business associates who wrong him? Because Ray is a first-time employee and famously a child killer. And still, Harry is motivated to go to Bruges for 48 hours.
Yeah.
Have a nice time. I'll send you off. It's creepily kind.
Yeah.
And says a lot about the other side of Harry. That is the one that Ken gets along with and does thing for his mates, and is the reason Ken fucking loves him, to quote it. Yeah. The choice of Bruges as a setting is perfect.
It's so good.
Bruges, it's in Belgium. That opening, I mean, it's not the opening because you get that sort of moody prologue, but you get, it goes back to, God, you can tell me this person, it goes back to Blackout. You get the title in Bruges, and before Lights Up, you get Bruges is a shithole, Bruges is not a shithole, Bruges is a shithole. Yeah.
It's so fucking funny.
Didn't even know where Bruges was. It's in Belgium. It's brilliant. And I also think this film must have done a fair amount of work for the Bruges Tourist Board.
I mean, definitely.
Like, everybody wants to go. It's amazing that
I'm going to go this Christmas. I'm going to wander around and I'm going to go up the tower.
Have you made this decision?
Not tonight. No, like 2 weeks ago I was like, I'm going to go to Bruges.
Are you actually going?
I want to go, for like a random weekend. Like, I was telling her I've got
you were saying that you want to go and your friend's in Brussels.
Friend in Brussels, and she was like, come to Brussels instead, I can't be asked going to Bruges. I'm like, no, I want to go to Bruges.
I want to go to Bruges.
And you can come see me in Bruges, and I want to go up the tower.
Because it looks great.
And I want to walk around. If it snows, it'd be awesome.
Yeah, and
I want to spend like a weekend taking pictures and stuff.
Yeah, and I was a medievalist at uni because I'm that cool all the time.
See?
But I'm Ken, when I go on holiday to Old Town, I want to look at all the old churches. Yeah. I want to see Christ's blood. The 11th century hospital. I'm so down.
Do you have
all
to?
Of that.
Do you have to?
Do you have to?
Suddenly Jesus, fucking Jesus Christ, but of course you don't fucking have to.
Of course you don't.
That's such a good line. Do we have to? He's dragging his feet like a kid.
Yeah, we've sort of mentioned the general brilliance of Martin in a very theatrical way. His dialogue is.
Yeah.
His language and the choice of conversation that they have is so obscure and odd and oftentimes so very, very funny. That's why this movie is so quotable. Every line is unexpected.
Yeah.
Of course you don't fucking have to, being about do I go and see this amazingly religious object, or the fact that they have a conversation about suicide sitting on park swings, or that entire meander with, of course you hit someone if they're coming at you with a bottle. What if he knows, your hands are a deadly weapon. What if he knows karate? What's a lollipop man doing knowing fucking karate? He was a 50-year-old lollipop man. That entire ridiculous conversations, which is the one that ends with him in tears going, I killed a little boy. It's beautiful, beautiful script writing of absolutely the highest degree. Did it win? It won Best Original Screenplay at something, didn't it? Or was it?
I could not say off the top of my head.
It was nominated Original Screenplay at the Oscars. I'm certain it won a writing one, either the Golden Globes or the BAFTAs. But
I think it was a British movie, so it's funded by Film 4 and all that sort of stuff. So I think it was
BAFTA.
A BAFTA.
Over BAFTA time.
Yes. I just want to mention how cool the manic depressive dialogue is with Ray, where he says he goes from crying and saying I killed a little boy to a couple of hours later it's I've already been in Bruges for half a day and I've got a date with a girl in the Belgian film business. The Belgian film business. It's the Belgian.
The film business. The Belgian film business.
Yes.
Can be very, very loose when he wants to be.
I think we should recommend people watch Don't Look Now by Nicholas Roeg.
Yes, we should definitely recommend. Who is very self-consciously mentioned. You'll get a lot of pleasure out of it because it kind of reverses the central twist of Don't Look Now.
And makes fun of it. Not to spoil anything, because I do think it's actually worth watching Don't Look Now.
Yeah.
Not knowing, obviously, because that's the whole point of the film. But I will say that Don't Look Now is an excellent film made in the 70s about, part horror and part...
meditation on grief.
Yeah, just a couple's marriage breaking down through grief of their daughter, and it's just really sad.
And Donald Sutherland and Julie Christie are fantastic.
Yes, they're very good in it. But yes, Don't Look Now by Nick Roeg, who used to be a DP, and then he started directing, and he was really good at directing. So, we shall talk about how Marie, who you put very eloquently, is the unsung hero of this film. Marie is the pregnant co-owner of the hotel that they stay in.
I believe what I said was that she was the low-key hero, and you misheard me and thought I was talking about Norse gods and got very confused.
Yes,
for a brief moment.
What the fuck are you talking about Loki for?
Marie is excellent. Firstly, the actress is excellent.
Yes.
Tekla something. She's a Dutch actress. But Marie is incredible and shows a tremendous amount of courage when she literally sits her pregnant self down in the middle of the shootout.
This is the shootout.
This is the shootout. And says very much, you can just fuck off. It says very clearly she won't go. She transcribes so faithfully Harry's tirade of profanity over the phone with that hand-penned note. I'm not the receptionist, I'm the co-owner with my husband Patrice. She is the recipient of all the money Ray has when he goes off. I think she shows tremendous fortitude, which I think must mean that she runs a tremendous business. That child will be very well looked after.
Yes. She is amazing.
And she has to opposite Brendan Gleeson when she calls him by his name, but it's by his alias.
Oh, I love that scene. And he comes in.
Mr. Bleaky? Yes. No. Mr. Cranham? Yes.
Yes.
Bleaky?
Hello.
Yes.
Hello. Mr. Cranham. Hello. Yes.
It's tremendous.
Yeah, that's such a good little scene. There's also another great scene with Marie when Ken is at breakfast and he says, I just want to apologise about the behaviour of the man who was on the telephone last night.
Oh, yes.
And he's he's a bit of and he's just he's such a prude and he's just doesn't...
she goes, cock?
Yeah, she's like, he's a fucking cock.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Marie's excellent. And she is one of the characters you see at the end looking at Ray when he's on the stretcher.
Alongside Chloe and Eric. You see Eric as well.
Yeah.
On the street, don't we? walking on.
It's kind of sad that everyone
Snaky Eric
dies, but everyone kind of has to die, I think, in this film.
Yeah, or in the sense that everyone, like, it's weird because it's like everyone who is not from Bruges dies.
Yeah, that's interesting. And all the side characters in Bruges are all the mouse-headed judgment people looking at the guys being killed.
Yeah.
You know, at the painting.
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it? I feel you just can't help but feel sorry for Ken, though.
Deeply sorry for Ken and deeply sorry for all of them. And I think that the tone of the ending is the thing that ultimately decides that it's not a comedy, right?
Yes, because we were talking about this earlier, how I was like, even though it's really funny, it's not actually a comedy.
No, I was listening to Mark Kermode in his Mayo's most recent review show talking about Knives Out,
right?
A new movie that's out, and he goes, whilst it is very, very funny, and like every line's a blinder, it is not a comedy. It's a very funny, dark film, but it's not a comedy.
Yes.
And I think this is
not a comedy.
Not a comedy.
No, it's not.
Not a comedy, but darkly comic.
Yes.
As is typical of all of Madonna's work, right?
Yes, indeed. But yeah, like Ken is the only character who has any. Actually, that's not true. They all have moral fibre to a certain extent, but like Ken is like the one who makes the decision to put himself in a situation where he's going to die.
Yeah.
Whereas the other two end up in those situations because of their own actions, almost unwillingly. But Ken is like he's the one who like takes on the responsibility of, being in the middle of the two of them. You know.
In that situation, I think there's a way in which you could argue that they all decide to die, and this brings their death wish about Ray is suicidal.
Yes, it's kind of horribly ironic that the as in Ken is so against suicide, but the way he dies is having to kill himself to warn Ray.
Yeah,
Ralph Fiennes is
in a scene that I cannot watch. I listened to it. I watched it through my cardigan.
Yeah, you had a cardigan
this
over your
evening.
face.
What I find heartbreaking
and that music is so
Raglan Road. It's the Dublins, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's gorgeous, but it's the way he buttons his coat up.
Does his tie up.
Does a tie in the hope, I think, that the gun doesn't fall out, and then drops the coins.
Yeah.
Because he still has the change.
Because he still has the
change. Because he wouldn't take it. It's the £4.90 entrance fee.
Yeah.
That he drops on the ground to make people move out of the way. He leaps from a building with such care.
Yeah, and dignity.
Which is very typical of his character, right? He's a details man. But that moment where he looks down from the belfry and it's just yellow fog and streetlights rather than anything but earth. Yeah. But also the sound his body makes when it hits the floor is revolting, which I know is my imagination filling a lot of things in. But the Foley guy's got that very right.
Yeah, it's very good because it's all very sort of ethereal, and you've got the music playing and the fog and the haze and all that sort of stuff. And then smacking, and all of a sudden it's like, fuck, we're in the shootout, run!
Mm-hmm.
Like
pace changes.
Yeah,
and the film is very good at changing scenes.
Yes, it's so good. Like you've got that, all right, that transition into the thing. Then you have the shootout. Then they're chasing each other, and then the ending, they like literally walk into their own Hieronymus Bosch painting of the film set of the adaptation of the Nicholas Roeg film.
I think even earlier when Harry's on the phone to Ken at the train station, he puts the phone down and you're then in Harry's house, which looks like a very nice estate. You hear that silence again.
You see the peacock out the window.
You hear the peacock in the background. You don't even see it. You hear that like.
I'm probably pretty sure you see a peacock.
Do you see a peacock?
I need to watch it again.
I was fascinated on hearing it. Yes, but we need to watch it again.
Yes.
You hear it in the back. Deathly silent, and Ray Fiennes being deathly still. And then he smashes the shit out of that phone. It's an inanimate fucking object.
That's probably
one
of the most quoted. That's like
I say it
all the time.
All the time.
And everyone else gets it as well.
Yeah,
like everyone
absolutely.
says, "Oh yeah, in Bruges, great."
And one thing I haven't mentioned about Ray Fiennes in this is I mean, I know his career fairly well, but I'm not intimate with every single thing he's been in. I am certain this film did something for him being like suddenly recognised as a comic actor. Because I remember like a lot of his earlier work, he's a very serious, buttoned up, stoic figure. Yes. And he comes across that way in interviews quite a lot as well. And then this happens, and then he gives like the most brilliant campus performance as Voldemort. And that the tone of the last 10 years of his career has been quite different. But this is the first time, at least, I realised that Ray Fiennes could be very, very funny. What he does with his face, I was saying this to you earlier as well, is I was convinced in the beginning that he was wearing like very subtle dentures or very subtle prosthesis on it because he looks like a maniac. Yeah. He's just doing good acting, but his face is utterly transformed. Yeah. When he's in the square talking to Ken, the way the lighting goes, he's got one dark eye and really like bright buggy eye. He just looks nuts.
Because he is a psychopath.
Yeah, maybe he is. I'm unsure. I think he's certainly got a very complicated psychology. Yeah.
You're an inanimate fucking object.
You're an inanimate fucking object. I say it so often.
Yeah.
And in situations that really don't need it, and in situations that like really require that I not swear.
You've just talked about part of his psychology is such a weird thing that he thought it would be a good thing to take people to Bruges before he kills them. You know, when I remembered when him and Ken are at the top of the tower, and it's just before Ken starts out with his Robert fucking Powell speech.
Powell speak. Jesus and the fact that we both went, who? And exactly then Ken goes, who? Jesus of fucking Nazareth.
Yeah, you can do speech. You can't,
Yeah.
No, you said all that. I can't shoot you now, can I? And then he shoots him in the leg anyway. He says, well, I'm not going to do nothing.
When he shoots him in the knee, I go all squeamy.
Yeah, but it just before that happens, Ken is like looking around. He actually says like, I'm glad I got it to see Bruges before he died.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really interesting. It's like, because Ken really enjoyed being there.
Ken really did like Bruges.
Yeah, he is like.
Ken really liked Bruges.
Check out the swans and everything, and like look at that old like hospital from the 11th century.
The hospital from the 11th century.
Yeah.
Looked like a great canal trip.
I know.
Yeah. Ken really liked Bruges.
And the bit where he says like, you let him get away, and the boy was suicidal, which would have solved your problem, which would have solved my problem.
Yeah,
which would have solved his problem. And Ken's like, yeah, I know all that is true, but he says suicide would not have solved his problem, and that's such an intense thing because Ken's like so anti killing yourself.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it won't solve his problem, because he says to Ray earlier, it's like, you won't do any good being dead.
Yeah,
which is such a good line.
He genuinely, and I have to say, against all evidence that we've had in this film, believes that Ray could really make a better life for himself. We don't have enough time around the time that we're shown in this film to understand where that judgment come from.
No.
And it may just be pure hopefulness.
It's really sad, and it really makes you think about like
it is
how how like precious everything is and how you should kill yourself. Because But
it's a weird kind of him and Harry kind of sit on the capital punishment line. Harry is you kill someone for the bad things they've done.
Yeah.
Ken is you give them a chance to redeem themselves and add worth back into the world.
Yeah, and like it doesn't matter what you do. It's just like just do something, and you're not going to do anyone any good by being dead.
Least alone the family of the boy.
Yes, exactly.
That was killed.
Yeah. Which brings us to the end of the film.
Back to
the
Boshy dreamscape.
The Boshy dreamscape of the film set, and the fact that he shoots him through the chest like 4 times, so you know he's gonna die. It's like he's not really gonna live after that. And
because of the dum-dums.
And because of the
Thanks,
dum-dums.
Yuri.
Because of Harry going, I know I shouldn't, but I will take the bullets that explode your head. He shoots the midget in the head. The midget's head explodes. You can't see the midget, and the midget is dressed up as a little schoolboy. And he's like, the little boy? He's like, yes, the little boy. And he goes, oh, I've got to stick to my principles, and he kills himself.
Yeah.
Because he says, like, to Ken earlier in the film, if it was me who killed a little boy, I would have killed myself on the fucking spot. I would have put my gun in my mouth on the fucking spot. Because in his words, you have to stick to your principles, which is super intense. And but the other thing is quite ironic that he chooses the bullets
and it's
that
a shame
made him...
for Jimmy as well. The most horrible way to die, but also it's the fact that he's dressed as a child, which he's already been openly mocked about
by Clemence Posey and
Colin Farrell.
Yeah.
He's in other elements of the film like revealed his character to be anything but a child. He's a drug taking, prostitute seeking actor. He's the closest the film has to that fast living in the Belgian film business.
I'm sorry I didn't say hello to you today when you said hello to me today. I probably wasn't saying hello to anybody. Maybe a horse.
Maybe a horse.
That's such a fucking funny line.
He's so good. Yeah.
I was like, I was on a lot of horse tranquilizer. I wasn't saying hello to anyone. Maybe a horse. Like, who thinks of putting maybe a horse in that? That's such a good fucking bit of writing.
Back to Mark McDonagh being amazing.
Yeah.
But it's quite a shameful way for him to die.
It's very undignified.
Very undignified, that's the word I'm looking for. For him specifically.
Ken, ironically, was actually the most dignified way.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah.
In the sense that he died to warn Ray.
Yeah. Whereas Jimmy is a short person who is mocked.
For being short.
And
dressed up as a boy.
And also has Ray talking to him all the time about the rate of suicide among short people.
You know what? I fucking missed that. That's such a...
It's the one track he's fixated on...
killing himself.
Ray's fixated on killing himself, but he's also fixated on the suicide statistics...
Amongst
short people.
Which he lists off as one of the guys off the Time Bandits, so-and-so, and he says, I think the R2-D2 man is still alive.
He's still here, yeah.
And he says, would you ever kill yourself? Because you're short. He says, what the fuck, man?
Yeah, what kind of question is that?
Yeah.
And also, because what kind of question is that to ask somebody? But, so I have a great deal of sympathy for Jimmy, actually.
Yes. And he's such a passive character.
It's not that passive.
No, in the sense that things happen to him.
Yes.
In
that way. He's classic wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah. You don't know karate. Back off, shorty. Boom. And karate chops him in the fucking shoulder. And
it's like this sort of facade of everything being, convivial between us was very much the cocaine.
Yes.
I'm going to go back to...
The two manky hookers and a racist dwarf.
The two manky hookers and a racist dwarf.
That's such a good line.
It's a very good line and said very well. It's not only one of the most quotable films I've seen, but it's one of those movies, and I suppose that's how quotes work, right, is you don't only remember the line. Or, we've made a poor hash out of about 3/4 of the lines we're attempting to quote in this, but still, you not only remember the line, you remember the exact cadence in which it was delivered. And also you can kind of imagine that is the cadence that McDonagh imagined in his head. Those lines we were like, that how could it be delivered any way else, that line? Like I've mentioned before with no lie, get in the back of the van! Like, that just exists in that way.
Yeah.
It just is.
It's such a good line, that.
Fork it! Sorry, that's a different movie for a different time.
Yeah.
But
it's just like, it's so good to having a film about a main character who's suicidal, and he ends the film running through his own judgment, wandering, and everyone's staring at him. There's that great, like the last 5 minutes of the film is excellent, where you have the snow getting, heavier and heavier.
Because it starts snowing when Ray Fiennes gets his little map out.
I know, it's so...
Done it. And also...
He puts his gun on the side.
He puts his gun on the side and gets his little map out.
I haven't been here since I was 7 years old.
Yeah. I also try and use maps in cities rather than my phone.
Yeah, I do that all the time.
It's great.
It's
great fun, and also makes me feel like I'm orienteering.
Yeah.
It's like, I can read maps. But...
Just spin it around.
Yeah. But you're right in that when you have a character who is suicidal in the last line, so we hear him speak, I really hoped I wouldn't die.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting tense to put it in as well.
Yeah.
It's not like I was really hoping that I wouldn't die, but I really hoped I wouldn't die. There's a possibility in the tense construction that he's dead.
Yeah.
And speaking. So it remains ambiguous down to that level, even though the severity of the injuries he has.
Yes, been shot in the chest 4 times.
4 times. With massive fucking bullets.
Yeah. And everyone else around him is judging him and looking at him and stuff. And there's a great bit where it's super wide.
Do you see them as judging him? All those people standing around him.
Well, they're just staring at him.
They're just staring at him.
Which is you couldn't...
Most of them are in masks, right? But they're really inscrutable. But Marie being
all the
there...
side characters coming in.
Chloe being there, even Eric being there, that seems very unreal. I'm unconvinced
Yeah.
they're really there.
Exactly, yeah, but exactly. That's why I mean it's in his mind he's being judged by all the people who have come into contact with him recently. Like, they're not physically there. That's all in his own head. And the camera's super wide, either looking down at him on the stretcher or the camera's on the stretcher as the stretcher is carried into the back of this ambulance. Yeah. The guy's, like, you can tell he's like on the back of the stretcher looking up.
I just think that ending really reserves judgment, actually. That's my takeaway. That kind of slide away into the trestle of the white ambulance is that, and I really hoped I wouldn't die.
Yeah.
And you see everyone looking at him, and Marie's looking with kindness. Eric can't quite read that. I think it might be just like, how the fuck is this guy still?
Well, it's just staring at him.
Just staring.
Yeah.
Chloe's very upset.
I know.
Everyone else is masked.
Yeah.
And just, they're being creepy, kind of, because it's Ray's head, not the world as is.
Yeah, and it's always his insecurity and his own madness in his own head, you know.
But I think that, like, off-kilter shot of the inside of an ambulance
is such a good ending.
But also the fact that there's no ambulance stuff in there.
Yeah.
There's no drips or bits and bobs, and it's just that space. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, and it lets you concentrate on the words.
Yeah.
It's like, I really wish I didn't die. So I've gone through the whole film wanting to kill myself. And I'm still in fucking Bruges.
Yeah.
And now he's reached the end of this film and he realises he actually has something to live for. When he sees people being murdered, when he sees, like, Jimmy get his head blown off, and when he sees Ken, his fucking best mate, Ken, die, his friend who, like, sacrificed himself for him. And I think
Do you think it's that realisation? It's like you're suddenly surrounded by loads of people dying, and you're like, oh no.
Yeah, and when he understands that Ken has killed himself to warn him.
Yeah.
And he's like,
brutal.
You've sacrificed your own life for me. Is like, I can't just, like, die now. I have to, like, and he's got something to live for because he's going out with Chloe
for a day.
Yeah, for a day, but I would still maintain that
the feeling
going out with a pretty lady gives you an enormous sense of optimism in life.
No, speak for yourself. Yeah, maybe not so bad.
And he sees the world differently, because you do see the world differently when there's optimism in your life. You see everything through a different set of eyes, and it's so spooky how fast and quickly that can happen. You do realise that you're actually...
And she is set up as lovely, right?
Chloe, yeah, even though she's a drug dealer who robs tourists.
Yeah, but she also seems uncommonly kind.
Yes, uncommonly kind.
Somehow, and it just works.
Yeah. And she obviously cares about Ray enough to, like, bail him out of jail.
This is true. There's a fast connection there. But yeah, I really hoped I wouldn't die. But for me, I've always read that of fear that he would die in Bruges. Because it being preceded by the, maybe hell is an eternity in Bruges. And I really hoped I wouldn't die.
Yeah.
There's something about, I just don't want to die here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Please let me get out of this place. Either way, that's the joy of a movie left open to interpretation, right?
Indeed.
Is it worth asking, do you think he makes it?
Oh, what, do you think I think he lives? I think the point of the story is that it finishes before we know that.
Yes, I agree.
Because the point of the film is that you have someone who's suicidal, who's come to a realisation that he does not want to kill himself anymore, and he's got something to live for. And that's as far as the film goes. And this is why I fucking love films like this, that don't...
I disagree with you on that being the point of the film, but...
Okay, go on.
I'm not sure... The point is more nebulous, but I that's never quite been my takeaway from it.
Right.
I'm trying to sort of functionally put what I take away from it into a phrase. The ambiguity is, of course, important, and always with those ambiguous endings. So it's ridiculous to speculate, and yet you really want to speculate.
Yeah, of course. But that's what makes it a good film, You're actually thinking about it afterwards.
It's true. And watching it multiple times. It's a very well-worn DVD.
Indeed it is. Mine is just starting to run out now. Anyway, I think we've covered this.
We done. We exhausted it.
We have talked about it for
a while.
Enough of time.
Enough of time has happened. We never mentioned Yuri and his alcoves.
Oh fuck no, we didn't.
Nooks and crannies. Yes, Yuri. He does yoga. That's like
exactly.
the only context we're given about him. I love Yuri. Yuri is my favourite character.
Yeah.
Another one, as well as you're an inanimate fucking object. Nooks and crannies, yes. Yeah. And alcoves, is this the right word? Alcoves? I say that. I mumble it to myself
as I walk around. I find it.
And it's Ken and Harry
continuously hilarious. And the fact that they
are like sizing up to kill each other. They're going, did he mention the alcoves to you?
Yeah.
The alcoves in the collegiate park.
It's lovely.
Yeah.
It's lovely. Yuri offers a wonderful bit of space in this film. I think if there's any space in this movie, it's the stuff in Yuri's house. And even then, that's not like excisable from the film. It's so important, but you know, because those breathing spaces are really important. And there's these like dark room with this guy.
This weird dude.
This weird who lives on like, what was it, like Ramstrad? That's like Ram, but with an extra A.
With an extra A, Ramstrad 17.
So I'm glad that we got to mention Yuri because he is my favourite.
Cool.
Alcoves in the park. Cool.
Cheers, Flo.
Absolute pleasure. We got this done.
Indeed we did.
We have been trying to record one of these for
many moons.
Many moons.
Thank you very much, Florence.
Absolute pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Adam.